If I want an answer, I don't want a story, but stories do help us understand. Hi everybody, my name is Greg Crable and this is my podcast, Something I Learned Yesterday, where I take a couple issues from the world of publishing and try to explain it in just a few minutes. I like the People versus Algorithms podcast. It's an entertaining mix of insight and quirky personalities. The interactions between Alex, Troy, and Brian are amusing. In today's podcast, I'm going to talk about two things from two recent episodes. One of the big conflicts in publishing today is what constitutes fair use. AI goes around slurping up everybody's content on the assumption that they have a right to do that and then use it. In episode 77, Brian Morrissey was explaining the perspective of somebody like Sam Altman, who would defend his notion of fair use by saying that content out on the internet is public data. Brian wasn't advocating that position, I hope not, and I think it's important to emphasize how wrong-headed it is. When a publisher puts content on the internet, they still own it. They still have copyright, and they can still set the terms for how it's going to be used. Content that's monetized with ads has two implicit assumptions. First, that the ads are being seen, and second, that they're being seen by a human. Unfortunately, publishers and their lawyers didn't have the foresight or the sense to make those expectations explicit in their terms and conditions. They really should have done that. That's why we're in the mess we're in now. AI is using content in a way it was never intended to be used by the publisher, but it's going to be harder to make that case legally because our lawyers let us down. Publishers need to amend their terms and conditions to make that explicit. Now, the second thing was a quote from Tony Stubblebine, who was a guest on episode 76. Tony's at Medium, which is a publisher that has a very different strategy than most publishers today do. He says they don't want to compete in the attention marketplace. That's just not their thing. Tony says humans understand stuff through storytelling, which partly resonates with me and partly irritates me. I see all this woo stuff on LinkedIn about storytelling, and my reaction is, no, just get to the point, please. I don't want to hear about your grandmother's garden. I want the recipe. Then he said something that grabbed my attention. We're never 3 bullet points away from understanding. I thought that was very clever, and I posted it to my family chat. And my daughter said, yeah, but when I'm really busy, I don't need the 7-page backstory. And I think that's the two sides of the coin here. More on storytelling. Last night I was watching The 3-Body Problem, and one of the bad guys was reading fairy tales to this race of extraterrestrials who were coming to Earth. That seemed silly at first, but it highlights an important difference between humans and these beings called the Santi, I think. We learn through story. If you were to break down Little Red Riding Hood into 5 bullet points, it just wouldn't be the same. You wouldn't learn anywhere near as much. There wouldn't be as much to think about. The story raises so many questions. Why is the wolf speaking? How could it fool Red Riding Hood? If the wolf just wants to eat her, why is it bothering with this whole grandma gig? The story raises so many fascinating questions that you would never capture just in a summary. A good story has layers and layers of meaning, and it's one of the primary ways that we understand things. But as my daughter says, sometimes you don't want the woo stuff, you just want an answer. So those are my thoughts for today. I hope that was helpful or at least entertaining. If there's any way I can help you with your business, please contact me. You'll see my contact information on the next slide. Thanks so much.